Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live here Friday, March 28th, third hour. Could only mean one thing. Although in the time of Trump, it can mean many things, but it only means one thing on this show. What just happened? As we look back at the insanity of the week, we have three returning champions. Zoe Levy's back, a very funny comedian, performs all over New York City, the tri-state area, produces a stand-up show weekly in New York, professional, unprofessional comedy, a graduate of Columbia University, so she could be abducted any moment during this interview. Zoe, nice to see you, my friend.
Thank
If we hear a knock on the door, we know it's happened. If people, I don't know what you did at Columbia years ago, but they probably something Trump doesn't like. So whatever it is, I'm glad you're here. Also back, someone who's definitely is on the Trump list, Nida Khan, writer, producer. She's written for everything from Essence to CNN, HuffPost, and more. She's also like me, Muslim. So this, and Wali's Muslim. This is three Muslims and a Jew. It's a new show we're doing on TNT on Thursday nights. So Nitha, welcome for as long as you're here. I'm good to see
you.
you.
Thank you for having me. I think you should change the name of the show to that. Sounds good.
Like three men and a baby, three Muslims and a
You're
Jew.
right. And your words are very comforting, by the way. Thank you so much. I'm glad to know. As one of the quote unquote, troublemakers, this is something I guess we have to think about now.
I'm just going to move to Louisiana right now and make it easy because that's where they send you once they abduct you. So why make it from New York where they have to fly down there? Also, Wali Collins is back. He's looking wistfully out somewhere. I'm not really sure into the prison yard where he's been abducted to, which is going to happen. Stand-up comic, actor, producer. He creator of Wait What with Wally. He's been on movies, TV shows, Letterman, and so much more. Hey, Wally, nice to see you.
Good to be seen, I guess.
It's good to be seen now. And,
Yes.
that's really important. All right, so let's talk something fun first. Signalgate. This is kind of fun. What's fun about it is that it's lasted for 5 days. Usually the scandals on time of Trump last for an hour because then he does something like poops on the desk and people are like, oh my God, what does that mean? This has been taking up because every day there's something new. And I've talked about in the show at length, everyone knows about it. Journalist Jeffrey Goldberg from The Atlantic was somehow accidentally brought into a signal chat when they were planning to blow up bad guys in Yemen. And then the lie started. Like this wasn't classified, which if you read it, it's like detailed list of the exact missiles, the weapon system we're going to use, when we're going to do it. Because we always read that stuff before a missile strike, don't we? So it's not classified. What's interesting is 74% of Americans think this is a very serious or somewhat serious problem, including 60% of Republicans. So Zoe, since you went to Columbia and you're smarter than all three of us here, so Zoe, what is your take on this? Is this going to could this actually be meaningful in the bigger picture in defining the Trump administration as not just evil and sinister, but actually horribly incompetent at the same time?
I think we've known it's incredibly incompetent. I think they're going to get away with it. I mean, I think what might result is that funding to NPR gets cut, which is just bad for democracy. I mean, I was listening to, like, as it was unfolding, I was listening to Jeff Goldberg be interviewed by, right, the people at NPR being like, and then I just sat and waited. And I was like, oh my, like, this is going to blow back on him somehow. The fact that they're saying that he may have got, it's just incredible that he would go into this chat. Like, just the incompetence is staggering, but it reminds me of the show Veep, honestly.
It did, but Veep was more fun and it
I
wasn't
know.
as scary. Like it was never going to
It was
impact me
well written.
personally. This is, I think it's interesting, Nitha, that Zoe brings up Mike Walls, national security advisor. These are the most incompetent people. None of them should be in their positions at all. He was on Fox News going, I don't know how Jeffrey Goldberg got in there. Sort of like he slipped into his DMs. Like Jeffrey Goldberg sent me pictures inappropriate of his body parts or something. I'm like, what is this? Like, are we getting to dick pics? Like, where are we going with this? I was very stung by this. So Nitha, what do you make of the whole scandal, any part of it, whatever you like?
As a journalist, I'm a little offended that I never get added to any sort of group chats like this, or nothing ever gets leaked to me. I'm still waiting for that day. I'm like, damn, one day I'll be at that point where some high level official will want to leak some classified info or something. That hasn't happened yet. But I agree with Zoe. The level of incompetence is amazing, remarkable, but I don't think anything will happen as far as anybody being really held accountable. Because as we always say, Republicans stand by their people. They never throw anybody under the bus. Even when they're wrong, they double down, triple down,
quadruple down. And what I find really, really fascinating is the part of this conversation, this chat, where they were openly discussing bombing a building where one of the supposed Houthi members was going to go visit a girlfriend or something. And I think Vance sort of objected to it, and the rest of them were like, hey, go ahead, bomb the building, bomb away, go ahead. So it's like openly talking about war crimes, and nobody's even discussing that aspect of it and just completely getting away with it. And it's remarkable how, Trump, who ran on being quote unquote anti-war, is bombing Yemen without any sort of congressional approval. The supposed we don't want to be involved anywhere is just increasing conflict everywhere he goes. So this entire moment, as usual, is hypocritical and just ridiculous.
So, and by the way, JD Vance did not object because he was concerned that they were blowing up an entire building of people in Yemen. He didn't want to bail Europe out. That was his point.
Right.
Like, it's not in the humanity of brown people. That's not JD Vance. Ironically, he's married to a brown woman whom it's a whole different thing. Look, Wally, you're the only one not wearing glasses. So what's your take on this? Because you probably see it differently than us.
I can get a pair of glasses. And
no, don't. I prefer this is better. There's three of us against you. What is... So, I mean, what's going on? Is anyone going to pay a price? Because no. I think Zoe's right. I think Jeffrey Goldberg is most likely to be prosecuted in a few months from now for some violation of the Espionage Act than anything that these guys are. Pete Hegseth just throwing garbage into a signal chat, like unreal.
Well, you know what? What I love about their policy or the way they handle these things is deny, deny, deny until you die. Just that didn't happen. Well, nope, that did not happen. But it says it right there. Nope, that did not happen. And then people are like, oh, I guess it never happened. And I'm like, yes, really, hold their feet to the fire. Because I'm telling you guys, man, we're seeing like a little taste of the incompetence that's happening because people are not trained. They don't really understand how the nuances of, these particular jobs. They got rid of generals and who've been in this field for 40 something years, who've been, in battle, you know what I'm saying? And it's like you're getting some guy who's a TV host. So there's more to it than saying, looking at a file and say, hey, do that, do this. No. And you're seeing that, and you're going to see that. You're going to see more and more of that. And they're going to deny, deny, deny. And I'm just wondering when, Democrats and everybody, even Republicans, are going to say, enough is enough. This is just a mess now.
We're waiting for that day. To me, the best, and Tulsi Gabbard, DNI, Director of National Intelligence, testified before the Senate. And they're like, were you in the chat? And her initials right there. She goes, I don't recall. Yeah. I'm like, are you Tulsi Gabbard? I don't recall. Are you speaking to us right now? I'm not sure. I could be speaking to you. Maybe I'm not. Who knows if I'm even here? So that is the ultimate thing. And at least John Radcliffe, for what it's worth, the CIA director was like, yeah, I was in the chat. You got me. I was JR. Like, were you JR? I was like, yeah, that's me. Yeah. But Mike Waltz, look at Zoe. They responded. If you saw the details, Mike Waltz, national security advisor, after being told the bombing worked, he sent like an emoji of a fist, like a fist and a fire and the U.S. flag. They're like children, like it's a frat party. Did you get the beer? I got the beer. I got the kegs. Like fire, fist pump. I mean, what has happened? This is the worst. They're dangerous, though. I want to laugh but they're still so dangerous.
This is to me.
Yes. Why not?
Oh,
yes.
God. They're just, it's like, is any workplace different? I mean, just like the group think is just tragic. I don't know. I'm not happy with any of, like, I don't love the Democrats for their incompetent, but like, they're not monsters, or at least if they are, they like refrain a little bit. Like, and the fact that like Nida mentioned it a little bit, like spoke to it, like this, like the denials, like it's like a lack of critical thinking we have right now is really scary. Like the education system has worked in making people just unable to think for themselves.
Or they don't want to. But when you put together a group of mediocre white guys, isn't this part of what happens? I mean, if we had DEI hires there, that no one, because Trump creates the environment, right? The climate is laws don't matter. I attempted a coup and cited a terrorist attack, and I'm here. So like nothing matters, right? But if you actually had people who were minorities, who were women in leadership, who had to work 2 or 3 times harder than these pampered victims on the right, these white victims, perhaps one of them goes like, I don't think that we're following the laws here, guys. But the white guys are like, whatever, fist bump, that kind of stuff. Isn't that, Nitha, isn't that part of it? Like, don't you think if someone was diverse would be, you go like, we can't do this. Well, I'm going to go to jail. White guys, you're not going to go to jail, but I'm going to go to jail, so we can't do this.
Absolutely. I just want to remind everybody who's old enough to remember the big quote unquote controversy when Obama was president and he wore a tan suit. And apparently that was like the end of the world, the biggest crime ever committed. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, the double standards. I think we need a better phrase even than double standards, because it's like one side literally gets away with murder and the other side has to be completely polished, impeccable, can't make any sort of mistake. And even if you wear a tan suit, it's like the biggest crime in the world. It's just insane. All of it is insane.
Hand suit fist bump. You know,
Oh,
I should say
yeah.
a tan suit. I need a tan suit
A
emoji.
Harris fist bump.
I wish I
That's
had
what
it. I
about it.
wish yeah, they called it I wish there was a tan suit emoji we could just send out there. Well, look, but so Wally, to shift gears in a way, and Zoe, I think you touched on this, or was it Nitha, about Sesame Street? I think it was Zoe. So this week there was a congressional hearings because there's nothing else to do in Congress. Apparently, when the Republicans control it, they're going after NPR and PBS on bias. They do both get some tax money. NPR gets very small amount. PBS is a little bit more percentage of their operating budget, but they can both function without it. But this is an ongoing thing. And some of the Democrats were funny. Congressman Robert Garcia from California said sarcastically to the people, "Is Elmo now, or has he ever been a member of the Communist Party?" And I thought that was pretty good. And the other Democrats are like, well, this is what it's come. They're going after Cookie Monster. So, I mean, Americans polling overwhelmingly, only 24% of Americans wanted to fund PBS and NPR. Of course, 44% of Republicans. But I mean, this idea, they want to control everything, Republicans. Everything. There's nothing. They want to control every single thing, including Elmo. You know, Elmo's got to wear a red hat. Red's not enough. He's got to wear a red hat, apparently. Did you watch Sesame Street growing up?
Oh, yeah. And actually, I was in a show called, oh God, I forgot the Sesame English. And yeah.
A TV show?
Say it again.
A TV show?
It was a TV show called Sesame English.
And what were you? Were you a character?
Yeah, I was the drummer in a band. And it was basically Sesame Street teaching English to kids from all over the world. And there was the Muppet character was his name was Tingo. And he wanted to learn like how to speak English, and so basically we kind of like explain like this is an apple. I mean, like you push the P, and the I. Yeah. So I hung out on the stoop on Sesame Street. So yeah, I know a little bit.
That's pretty cool. Last year, me and Maysoon, who you guys know Zoe, I don't know if you know Maysoon, we spoke at Sesame Street. It was Arab American Heritage Month. And I got to meet my favorite Muppet, which is Cookie Monster, of course, because I like Cookie Monster a great deal, one of my favorites. And they gave me I have the Cookie Monster creature somewhere in here. They gave me a whole bunch of swag. It didn't pay well, but a lot of swag.
Oh yeah, a lot of swag.
There's a lot. I got everything. I got sweaters, T-shirts, you name it. I got like a Sesame Street closet going on now.
Also, I met my my favorite character. Well, Fozzie the Bear and Animal.
Animal, the drummer.
Yeah. And Fozzie the Bear is the comedian, and I met the guy, and he was tripping that I knew that he was Fozzie the Bear, and he's like, I'm like, yeah, man, he's a comic, man. I understand the struggle.
That's fun. Zoe, is there any Sesame Street character that you like or identify with, or that you think is misleading children into liking transgender people? Is that what's going on? Because we know there's something deeper going on here.
I grew up on Sesame Street. There's
actually Sesame Street. Sounds like you.
Yeah,
actually you grew like 74th and Sesame.
Yeah, I was born in 95, so I like really grew up in this prominent Sesame Street era. There's a picture of me like nonverbal. I was like 2, holding like 3 different colored Elmos, and I like told my parents like, "You spoiled me." like literally, I couldn't ask for it at that age. There's just 3 different Elmos in my hands, And they're like, "Well, you're an only child, so."
Is that how it went?
No transgender.
Did you get everything as an only child? Is that how it works?
Yeah, it's bad.
That's good and bad. Like if I didn't have my sister, I would have gotten so many more things as a child.
You don't get taught how to lose as an only child.
you win at everything.
Yeah.
Nitha, what about you? Sesame Street? Was there a brown Sesame Street? Maysoon mentioned there was
brown Sesame Street
character. Was there growing up? There must have been. I also like Bert and Ernie. I learned Count Chocula. I think Count Chocula, the Count, not Chocula.
Count Chocula.
That was Count Chocula was the other one. The Count, I'm pretty sure he was Arab because he looked Arab to me. He looked like my uncle. He looked like my uncle.
I gotta look
Jamie
into
Farr or Casey Kasem. He looked very like I could have called him.
He might have been, or are you talking about because of the eyebrows? Who was the one with the eyebrows?
Exactly.
Yeah,
that was it.
So racist, Dean.
That's 1, 2,
What was the accent from?
What? He was Arab.
That's an Arab accent?
I think so. Today, if it was on Fox News, they'd have him counting down like scary. 3, 2, 1. Like, what's going to happen? Oh, evil Arab count. So, Nitha, did you watch Sesame Street here just to close
Of course,
the loop?
absolutely. And you know what? It's funny because I remember, and my parents told me this like later on, once we were a little bit older, that they purposefully would talk to us in Urdu when we were little kids so that we would know the language, be in touch with, our heritage and culture. And they were like, you can learn English from things like Sesame Street, going to school,
Oh.
stuff like that. And I'm like, wow, that's fascinating. Like, obviously, I had no idea that's what went down, but apparently that's what went down. So it was a huge part of our household growing up, Sesame Street and all of like PBS, NPR. You talk about educational, informative. This is just part of their concerted attempts to attack all of that, to further dumb down society, because a dumbed down society is easier to control. And that's part of their attacks on colleges, on universities, changing language. And, it's really ironic and hypocritical for the party and for the right wing that's always talking about the quote unquote nanny state and people having control over everything. And they're the ones who really literally want to control everything from the bedroom to what you're watching on television. And in full disclosure, I actually did work at PBS for a year on a couple of different projects. And it was amazing.
Oh.
Just like amazing folks that worked there, absolutely talented, brilliant. I had a great experience there.
So, you think about it, how Sesame Street for all of us brings up these nice memories. But to those on the right, it's something bad. And I wish we could look at the childhood of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like, what happened? If someone had just hugged her or given her like a Elmo doll, maybe she'd be a different person today, right? I mean, so we just go back in time as a little kid there, and they won't let her watch Sesame Street. So now she's angry because Marjorie Taylor Greene was leading the attacks on it. But if someone had just given her like Cookie Monster, she's like, Cookie, and like her heart grows as 3 sizes, like her heart goes 3 sizes. Like, they should do something. So, I mean, is there a way? I mean, I really think this is a humanity thing. I think something happened to childhood Republicans to make them Republicans. Something bad.
It is very concerning, their upbringings. I think we should look into. I mean, what scared me most is like Nita said, like the fact that people are like afraid, like the much dumber populace is a more dumb populace. I'm guilty of it myself.
That's fine. Well,
Like I did philosophy at Columbia, and so like I did political philosophy too. So it's about how like government works and like free speech and justice and Isaiah Berlin's like it's been years, 2 forms of democracy. It's very interesting. I'm sorry, my cat's trying to get out right here.
this is what happens. Everyone has animals. All right, go take care of your cat.
Yeah.
Chatting with Zoe Levy and her cat, Nida Khan and Wali Collins. So this is kind of remarkable. So last night, Donald Trump, going up what you're saying, that they're trying to control everything, signs an executive order, and I'm not kidding, to remove improper ideology at national institutions, including the National Zoo was named. And what's going on at the zoo? I haven't been to the National Zoo. Is there a transgender giraffe that I don't know about? Is there something going on over there? Are there DEI lions at the zoo that they got us up? Wally, what could happen to the National Zoo where there's an improper ideology going on? What are the animals? What's going on?
They're getting rid of all the black bears.
It's just, and they're painting them all white. It's white facing the bears.
Place them with polars.
Only polar bear. Imagine the whole zoo, every animal's white. Like everything.
And they're like, this isn't my climate. They're melting.
Or zebras. They're in trouble.
They're in the shop right now. They're like paint over the black. Like we're biracial. So I mean, Nitha, this is part of what you're saying. They want everything. They want the zoo. Nothing is safe.
It's so ridiculous. I mean, we're literally in the dumbest era ever.
Oh
And
my
what's really,
God.
like it really is the dumbest. Like you could not script this. You couldn't make this up. Even if you said this like 15 years ago, nobody would believe it, that this is where we are. And this is where we willingly have gotten by millions of people voting for this. It's so sad. That's the most tragic part, I think, about all of this is that a lot of people, and we're talking about millions again, are still celebrating all of this. They're saying, oh, this is great. This is what we want. Get those people out of here. Take away this language, and essentially the message that what people, of color and a lot of minorities are getting is that they want to put us back to an era and then put us back to, quote unquote, put us back in our place, right? And make this a predominantly white controlled country. And now apparently we're going to be importing white Afrikaners from South Africa.
We're low on racist white people.
I mean, it's just, all of it is ridiculous. And the haphazard way that they're doing, stuff like this, even with using AI and tech to go through and eliminate language, like anything with words like diversity or progress. I mean, just insanity going on. And some of this stuff doesn't even make sense that they're removing, and it's just like automatically done through AI and tech. It's just so sad. It's so tragic.
Very much so. But the good thing is, Wally, and I'm being sarcastic here, they want to bring something back. So Donald Trump, in his executive order yesterday, they're going to bring back the monuments that have been improperly removed or changed in the last 5 years to perpetuate a false revision of our history. And what they're getting at are the Confederate generals. They're going to bring back Confederate generals and pro-slavery Supreme Court Justice Roger Taney, who was a racist who wrote the Dred Scott decision, was just a scumbag. They're bringing back those statues. I can't wait to the ceremony. Are they going to dress like in like very segregationist outfits, that kind of stuff, like the white hats and the juleps and the whole thing? Like maybe they'll actually have a slave auction. Wally, I mean, this is where we are. This can't be where we are, but it is. I mean, there was a Judge Beryl Howell wrote an opinion last week we covered on the show where about Trump attacking these law firms and penalizing these law firms for representing people against them. And she wrote, this can't be the reality we're in. And I'm like, this is the reality we're in. That's the worst part of it, Judge. Like, I wasn't there. I wasn't saying to the judge, but I'm saying, like, yeah, Judge. So Wally, they're getting the band back together. Confederate band. I mean, I'm not even kidding. It's literally in the order to bring back, disparage certain historical figures or events in the Capitol. And according to HuffPost, that includes bringing back Confederate generals and pro-slavery Supreme Court justices who were removed from the Capitol. This is going to be some ceremony. I can't wait for this.
It's just really sad. Like, I thought that the people who loses the war, or anyone lost the war, you don't put their monument up. Well, Germany's a perfect example, obviously. But no, I always thought that when you lose the war, the victor is praised, not the one. Yeah, but we had a lot of pride. Yeah, but you lost the war. But we're very proud about it. But you lost. But now that it's like I think that they want something, because I think they know that they're so to speak getting pushed out, because in another 20, 30 years, there's going to be more brown people in America. And I think that they're trying to hold on to a little piece of something. The whiteness or the control that represents that, what they had, and it just seems pathetic. It's obvious and pathetic.
I agree. And Zoe's drinking actual grain alcohol from that jug there, turpentine from some kind of thing made from a southern grist mill of some sort from decades ago. So Zoe, where are we going as a nation? I mean, the push and pull between going forward and backwards has not ended. Like, that's what I've really learned during the time of Trump in the last few years. Not only is progress not permanent, as we saw at Roe v. Wade specifically, and the Voting Rights Act, which they got, but the idea that we're always going to have this push and pull, where the forces that want to move forward as a nation and progressive in the best of way versus those who are truly regressive, like they want to go backwards to a white, male, supremacist, Christian-dominated nation.
It's crazy. I think that's why, as white women, we're obligated to only marry brown men.
Is that simple? And how does that, in the big picture, that works? Like
small act of rebellion. No, I don't know. If we could go back to the zoos for a second, because I'm like I don't really talk about this, but I'm like a very like I was raised vegetarian. Like,
oh,
I love the other animals so much. You too, Wally?
Vegan.
Me too. I'm vegan for 11 years. Awesome. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I just
same. Sorry.
Sorry.
I like really care about the other animals. Like it's not about the environment. It's not about health. It's really about them. And I just want to say on the record, I studied this. Zoos aren't good for animals. They're good for humans. Like,
to watch the animals.
Yeah. Like if a tiger is extinct because their natural habitat has been taken, should we really have them in a pen in Central Park? Like, that's like the way they breed like zebras and like give the males to like like petting zoos or hunting reserves. Like they have a certain quota. Like it's really inhumane. I've looked into it. Like I've looked into like the 4 pillars of conservation, and they're all bullshit. Like, so I'm but speaking of your point, it's much easier to tear something down than to build it, which is so scary. Which because not talking about zoos, it's I'm somewhat, I mean, like this avian bird flu. Like I know that's not on the topic, but
That's fine.
it's much easier to tear something like I don't know how we're going to rebuild certain things that have been like
Right.
hallmarks of our democracy, and I just see us backsliding. Like the fact that that woman might get sent back to Turkey, like under
Well, we're going to talk about that because
Good.
that's just
Okay, good. Okay.
horrific.
Cool.
The zoo thing I never thought about, Zoe. It's also interesting. I used to do a joke about years ago. I used to do it at the Cellar just to taunt Manny and Esty about I put ads in Jewish dating publications like, "Do you want to piss off your parents? Date me. I'm Palestinian. Let me occupy your territory." You know, and they would. Manny at least would laugh. He passed away. He was the owner, but Esty. That's funny. No, she didn't like that at all. So, all right, let's take a quick break because we've covered so much so fast. We're going to come back with more of what just happened right after this. And welcome back. And we're continuing what just happened with our friend Zoe Levy, Nida Khan, Wali Collins here. So let's talk about first of all how everyone hates us. You know, like what was that series? Everyone Hates Chris with Chris Rock. I mean, Wally, you're friends with Chris. And it's now Everyone Hates America. Here's the bottom line. In the big picture, we're the bad guys now. Like we are the bad guys.
Yep.
This is very hard to comprehend, but we are. If there's another world war, we're in the axis of evil part. We're no longer on the good guys part. And we weren't perfect before. We had a lot of bad things, but now we are affirmatively in the bad. We're not even pretending we're good guys and not even aspiring to. So JD Vance, as we speak, is on his way to Greenland with his wife. I sort of like a real estate walkthrough. Like, oh yeah, like, well, we're going to fix that up. We'll take that there. You know, the igloos, they got to go. Don't want any igloos. Native people, they're a little bit more brown than I would like. And they're going there. And it is so provocative that both Greenland and Greenland is like a semi-autonomous colony and they're going to be free soon. They view it as hostile. The prime minister of Greenland said that this is just the presence in Greenland will no doubt fuel American belief in Trump's mission and the pressure will increase. And it's highly aggressive. And it's telling us like, we want to take control of you. I'm like, that's exactly what it's saying. So Zoe, we're living through an imperialistic time. If we were in a different time, if this is 1930s, we're just having troops go over the border into Canada and into Greenland now. But he's serious. Like he really wants, and I wonder if Americans are willing to sacrifice their children to go fight a war taking part of Canada or part of Greenland, if that's what it gets to, because who's going to stop this guy?
Definitely not. I mean, it doesn't matter how pro-Maggie you are, you don't want your kids going in there. I mean, this morning I watched the Canadian PM's like little speech, right? And it was so painful to watch him have to truly act like he respects Trump, right? When Trump has basically been like, what if I pull a Putin and just like subsume Canada into the US? Like that's just I'm not doing the voice. Do we think he thinks it's flattering that everyone does the voice?
Who?
I think Trump. I think he's so narcissistic.
He loves the attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. But yeah, Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, in his announcement on Sunday about snap elections, the theme was taking on Trump. In fact, the Liberal Party that Carney's in and Trudeau was in was down by 20 points until Trump did all this shit. And then they're defending Canada. Now,
but he still really did have to be like, we understand his agenda. Like there was like the veneer of like political like respectability there where I was like, this is why I want to be a politician. Like I don't want to be muzzled, like I want to be able to say what I want to say.
Well, think about the world's biggest superpower is on your border with a mentally ill, cognitively declining leader who his legacy is to be a Putin of North America and take your country. So there's a point where you can fight and there's a point where you're like, okay, let's just calm him down. So Nita, I mean, what do you think? Are we going to take Greenland or Canada? If you were going to bet which one, I think Gaza's off the map for a little while. It's too far. Trump wanted Gaza. He wanted to build the hotels and all that kind of stuff. He really does. Well, I think this is closer, so he's going to focus on this, to be honest.
I think they're still very much going to go after Gaza, sadly. It's just horrible. That's a whole separate conversation, but just what's going on. But to go back to Greenland, what I thought was really funny initially, I don't know if you remember, but Usha was supposed to go there by herself, and
JD's wife.
apparently, American officials went to Greenland's capital and they went door to door to find people who would be happy about her visit, and they couldn't find a single person. So this is why I think then Vance then decided that he has to go himself. So that's sort of what went down behind the scenes.
And by the way, it started out that she was going to go to their famous dog sledding race and all this stuff. And then they read there was going to be protests and they're like, no. And then when they were sending Vance and I saw this anger, I'm like, folks, I was telling people on the show, Google Archduke Franz Ferdinand. I mean, because this is how it starts, my friends. You send them over, people are hostile, something happens to JD, and then we have to go to war. It's World War I, in this case, 3. So, but now they are so backed off, they're only going to the U.S. military base because we already have U.S. military bases. Anyone out there's like, we need to do this for national security. First of all, what's the threat from the north? Who was coming for Eskimos? That wasn't happening. Second, we have a military base there. We could have more military base. They would let us have more. It is so uninhabited. They would let us have that. That's not the issue. Trump wants to take it so that Tesla can make more batteries from the lithium. So, Wally, what do you think? We're living through a time. We have a madman as president. Like, we really are living through this surreal moment where the guy in the White House wants to take over other countries. He's starting tariff wars, destroying our economy. The market is dropping everywhere, but he's still helping Elon Musk, his top donor, in the new Gilded Age we live in. This is off the charts bullshit.
This is so embarrassing. It seems like I don't want to say we're going backwards even. It's like we're like off the rails. It's like what are we achieving? What's making this country great? Not even again. It's like, the rest of the world's like, ugh, America. Tourism's dropping, it's like, I heard that they're avoiding flights, some countries are avoiding flights to like land in New York or in like, the major hubs. And, just basically human beings realizing, not Republicans or Democrats or progressives, when they're all going to get together and say, enough, stop, just please stop this. Because every day, I watch the news, and I got to stop watching the news. No offense, Dean, but
no, it's not. You can listen to my show because I'm not really news, but you know what I'm saying. This is just for fun.
Sad when people say that, though. I get it because it's so much and it's so negative and it's a lot to digest. But so many people are tuning out, and that also contributes to the problem. Then, right? Like, sorry not to cut you off, Wally, but it just makes me sad. Like, as a journalist and a media person, when I hear people say that, like, oh, I'm not watching, I'm not reading, I'm not paying attention. And I'm like, no, you must engage.
But see, here's the thing. That's the thing about like a lot of these news outlets. They're 24 hours. So they got to have something. And so they're going to push out any stuff that affects you, that brings you any kind of agita, anything that gets you some kind of emotion. So they're gonna just hold on to that and push that. Well, and people get very upset about that. So why watch something that's going to upset you, instead of saying, here's some good news, so to speak. Good news doesn't sell.
Well, there's fun stuff like watching the Mets lose, which I'm a Met fan, so it's always losing. Although last year was actually an amazing year. Chatting with my friends Wali Collins, Nida Khan, and Zoe Levy. But Wally, to your point, the Guardian reported yesterday, flights are down by 70% from last year to this time between people from Canada coming to the US. I've had many Canadians because the show also is broadcast. I'm huge in Canada, by the way. I can't walk in Montreal. They're like, is that Dean Obeidallah? No, it's not. No, but the show SiriusXM is in Canada and this channel is in Canada. And Canadians have called and talked about how amazed they've been with the national unity that they've not felt, I guess, before, almost like a fervor. People boycotting American products. They have apps now. One listener called and said, telling us what are American products and what are Canadian to make sure you buy Canadian. Don't come here for vacation. The Prime Minister from Ontario, Charlie Angus, just gave a speech last week where I played it. He said, don't go to America. Keep the boycott going. Like, Zoe, we've pissed off Canada. They're like the nicest people. I've been there for shows. They really are. It's not even, it's a stereotype that's based in reality. They are truly, truly nice people. And we've pissed them off to the point where they're booing our national anthem at events. Like, I don't know how history looks at this and goes, what the F was going on? What was America doing here?
Yeah.
And I don't know what to say. Would you travel internationally now? And if you do, would you say you're American? Would you say you're something else? Like just in New York?
I've always said I was Canadian.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Are you
Just
kidding at all?
no. But there was like a minute there where I wanted to, like this summer, I was like, maybe I should marry a Canadian just so I can flee. And now I'm like,
They'll come get you.
well, I should marry, like, I want to marry like a US citizen with EU citizenship. Like, well, that's the scary thing. As an American, like,
Right.
Jew, like, as a New Yorker Jew, like, America's the only, like, I think Canada would reasonably, I mean, they never really wanted Americans. It's reasonable, right? I don't want us, you know? But, like, for me, like, the only other nation that would readily take me as a citizen is Israel. And that's not a good plan, right? That's terrifying.
That's funny, Zoe. You view marriage like in Game of Thrones, like
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
strategic choice. It's like you're gonna have to marry the queen of
I'm just trying to
France and
strategically align
right,
myself.
like
Yeah.
you're like the woman with the dragon. What's her name? Targaryen.
Uh,
Zoe Levy is
darn,
Targaryen.
darn.
She
Yeah, yeah.
so that's how it works. And Wally's Jon Snow, and I don't even know. Is there a funny one? That wasn't. I can't remember. It
Oh,
seems so many years ago.
yeah.
Peter Dinklage was the funny guy. I mean, he
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
snide and mean and
Vegan in real
cutting.
life.
Is he a vegan in real life?
He really is, yeah.
That explains a lot. No, I'm
Really?
kidding.
Yeah, he
I
really
have no
is.
idea.
Yeah. He's like an animal rights activist, yeah.
So, all right, Nitha, I'm going to go to you on this one because it's truly concerning because the person looks like you a little bit. I mean, it doesn't really look like you. I'm kidding. It's the same similar skin color, and it's a Turkish woman who
Yeah,
was
clean that up, Dean.
going to school. I can say anything, Nitha. I know Nitha for years.
Inappropriate comments.
This is what we do. This show goes to HR every week, and I get in trouble. I have to have a meeting. I'm like, but it's comedy. Don't you get it? This is what we do. We tell funny things at each other's expense. I treat Nitha like she's a comedian, which is not fair because you're not.
Okay,
'Cause
don't
I'm
worry.
really,
I
'cause we're
appreciate it.
terrible at
That's
each other.
really- I love
Right.
that's why I love doing your show because it's always fun. You know, news is always miserable, so at least you make it entertaining and fun.
So you've probably all seen the video, the young woman, a Turkish student at Tufts University going to class, and these masked person walks up to her and stops her in the street. She's trying to get away from the person because she doesn't know who it is. And she's in Somerville, Massachusetts, and not far from Tufts. And they just take her and they disappear her. And Marco Rubio is very happy because we've done this to 300 students, these lunatics, he said. And they asked them, what have they had done? And their answer all the time is they've glorified Hamas. And I'm like, well, what have they done? Like, why don't you tell us what they've done? And the reason they can't give you details, because in this case, what we've seen about her is the only thing, the allegation at all that we saw is she co-wrote an op-ed in the student newspaper that called on Tufts to divest and like a BDS movement with Israel and divest from Israel. And that's going to be the reason you're going to throw someone out. Like, she's a young woman. She didn't beat up anyone. She's not charged with any crimes. And Nitha, this is deeply, Mahmoud Khalil is still being held. There's people who are deeply concerned. If you made any comments at all criticizing Netanyahu or pro-Palestinian, that your life could be altered forever. She might not get her PhD from here in the States, where she was going to get it from Tufts. This affects the trajectory of her life. And she did nothing but speak out against atrocities, to be blunt.
Yeah, it's so horrific, Dean. And, you know, I was reading something from a friend of hers that posted about, you know, she is the most kind individual. Like, she dedicated so much of her life to just helping people both in Turkey and here. And that video, the way they literally snatched her up off the street.
Yeah.
It was freaking, if somebody came up to me like that, they would have been punched in the face. I'm sorry. You do not roll up on somebody and just start taking their bag off, snatching her cell phone. I mean, it was freaking ridiculous. It looked like those videos that you watch out of Russia where they snatch dissidents away and take them away. And that's exactly what's happening now. And this is what's being normalized. It's absolutely ridiculous, disgusting, outrageous. I'm so pissed off. And today Dean, you mentioned Mahmoud Khalil. They had a hearing, I believe in Newark, because they're trying to have his case moved to New Jersey because remember, he's still in Louisiana.
Right.
She's now been sent to Louisiana and they're trying to get them out of the country as quickly as possible because apparently in Louisiana, there's precedent for getting detainees deported right away. And, you know, I wrote a piece which has not been published yet, as usual. I'm probably going to end up self-publishing it because nobody wants to publish it. But it's about the fact that all of this has been in the works for over 20 years, right? Like all the haste of the war on terror post 9/11, the things that were done from the Patriot Act to NSA surveillance to interrogation to black sites to Gitmo, all of this stuff, even the establishment of Homeland Security, of ICE, all of that in the haste of afterwards, following this horrific terrorist attack that happened, and all of our civil liberties that we gave away for years and years and years laid the groundwork for us to be here. And I remember even when Obama was president, he warned, there were certain things he did not feel comfortable doing, but he still did it. And he would sign a signing statement, like for instance, with the NDA, saying that, we're going to make sure we don't do X, Y, and Z. But he was still worried about the fact that if somebody else is in power, they may do certain things. And we're at that horrible moment now where you have this wannabe dictator, this white nationalist, this criminal himself who's in power, in the highest position of power, and who's now doing all this draconian stuff across the land. And this is just the beginning. Like, I know you tweeted thing about they're going to start going after citizens as well.
Oh, they are.
Absolutely. It starts with the most vulnerable and then expands from there. And we were talking, Wally, you were talking about international traveling and different countries warning their citizens not to come here, because even Europeans are being detained at the border, being sent to certain places, being questioned. So they're warning their citizens not to come to the United States. And somebody made a joke, I forgot who it was, made a joke that, when they're starting to detain white people, we're in trouble. It's like, I mean, it's funny, but it's not. And it's sadly true. It's very scary. My mother and I had a conversation, like, we don't feel comfortable. Not that I had any plans on going anywhere, not that I could afford to go anywhere right now, but we don't have any plans to go out of the country because you just don't know, even though we're all citizens. My mother's
I know that's
over 50 years.
So,
but it's a very scary time.
I agree. So Zoe, let me get your reaction, because a lot of this is under the guise of defeating anti-Semitism, but 80% of Jewish Americans voted Vice President Harris. I think they got it. They saw what Trump is for what he is. What's your reaction to that? Do you feel like you're being used, that the Jewish community is being used to silence dissent on first? This is just step one. We all know the goal of this. It's just, what's your reaction to that?
I mean, we always are, but it's a tough position to be in. I mean, I think the thing with like Colombia, like, it's been really disheartening to see the way that there's been a conflation of protesting, like, what Israel's doing and being pro-Hamas. Like, that's insane to me. And honestly, I think it makes Jews more at risk for anti-Semitism, the fact that they've detained, and they're probably going to send him back to Palestine. Like, I mean, and with her, it's just, I don't want to botch her name, but
I couldn't say it either.
I'm thinking, well, I don't know. I think of like Hannah Arendt's, like, the statelessness, which is like a fundamental deprivation of human rights. Like, we've taken away the right to have rights. Like, the fact that we would send her back to Turkey, right? Which, since, like, I mean, Erdogan was elected in 2014, right? And there's been this loss of like liberal democracy. I mean, like, I looked into it this morning, like, it's technically, on paper, it's a presidential representative democracy and constitutional republic within a pluriform multi-party system, right? Which just sort of sounds like a pig with lipstick on it, right? Like, you can't dress it up. Like, and the president's the head of state and head of government. And it's terrifying, because to me it looks like a good playbook for Trump. Like, he's like, could we be
Viktor Orban more so in Hungary, but like Erdogan in Turkey just had his primary political opponent, the mayor of Istanbul, arrested just over the weekend. And there were European experts, who said now Erdogan has gone from this being a competitive autocracy to an absolute autocracy where you can't win electorally. And that's what Viktor Orban's done. That's the goal in America. You still have elections. You can still win like little like blue states. We'll still have that, right? But nationally, you'll never win again. And that's the goal of the right. And that's what Viktor Orban has done now for over a decade in Hungary. And they're doing that same playbook. So, Wally, I mean, do you have any concerns about leaving I'm planning on leaving the country to go on a vacation to Europe, but I do have some concerns. I mean, I was just saying to people, the idea of talking to friends about getting someone from the ACLU on the show before that, to have another good contact there. If I'm not allowed back in, they go, we see you're anti-Trump, you're anti-American and you're pro-Hamas because you express concern for Palestinians, that kind of stuff. You wonder, because at some point they will make an American citizen who was born here an example. They might first do it to a naturalized citizen, but then they'll do it to an American citizen born here, just to make the example so that everybody, it's about chilling, right? So that everyone goes like, okay, I'm just not going to say anything. It's just not worth it. This guy's gone in a few years. He's never leaving, by the way, folks, but he's gone in a few years. That's part of the goal. So, I mean, do you have those concerns at all, sincerely?
Well, Dean, I'm going to tell you, I did a tour in Israel about 3 weeks ago, a
Wow.
10-day tour. And family and friends were like, don't go, don't go. I just had to go. I had to go to understand, to see what was going on. And also what people thought of America, kind of like look back at, what's going on with America. And what I thought was really interesting, because when I talked to a lot of Israelis, a lot of them, pretty much all of them, are like, "Yo, we just want peace. We just want to go to work. We just want to send our kids to school. This
Right.
back and forth. That's not us. There's that few, that powerful few, that in any situation that are just causing these problems. And you can tell they're just, people are just exhausted. They're just, we toured up the West Bank, and the West Bank people were just so surprised that, like, you're here, you're doing a show here, like, yeah, they're so.
Who did you go with?
I went with LA Comics, and I don't know if any of those guys, and
And you went to the West Bank? You did shows?
yeah, and
Wow.
yeah, it was. Like I said, I'm so glad I went, because it was a lesson for me to to actually see with my own eyes, and not necessarily taking the word of the media, so to speak, but really understanding. And what I got was, like, people are just exhausted, they're just so tired, and just they just want to go, just live in peace. Both sides. I met some Palestinians too, and they're saying the same thing. I'm like, oh,
Well, people want to live. It's politics. I had on last week Yehuda Cohen, who's the father of an Israeli hostage still held by Hamas, who is so upset with Netanyahu, who laid it out that Netanyahu is the reason for the ceasefire. He's so upset. He went to the ICJ and spoke to the prosecutors to prosecute Netanyahu, because he's the reason his son is still a hostage, because they had made a deal, Hamas, on stage 2, they would have been released, that all the hostages would have been released, but Netanyahu's made a choice. So look, you have far right political figures in Israel led by Netanyahu and his coalition, and people like Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir, who are far, far right, really bad people, running things. That's part of. All right, we only got a few minutes left. I want to get your reaction to this. I thought this was so amazing. This week, TMZ released that after the Super Bowl, where Kendrick Lamar sang, and he sang his song, Not Like Us, there were 125 complaints filed with the FCC. And a lot of them apparently were from white people who called the performers divisive, and that it was all black people accusing Kendrick of having a potty mouth and only using black performers with his divisive set. And then there was another subset that didn't like that he went after Drake. That's kind of funny. So they brought the two together, like white nationalists who were upset and Drake fans. Like, that's not good. He's making fun of our guy here. So Zoe, do you come down on the Kendrick Lamar Drake? Are you on Team Lamar, Team Kendrick, Team Drake? Do you have a side?
Team Lamar, but I think it's pretty impressive that it was less than 1 in 1 million viewers that complained. Like, that's a pretty good, that's a great rate.
That's a good point. Like, you're looking at the optimistic side. I look at the fact the white fragility. Everyone was black. You see that? I'm going to call somebody. Trump's going to stop this.
Why not Dolly? Could we have Dolly up there?
Yeah, we want, but no, they don't like Dolly because she's kind of like progressive on things. It's got to be like the Kid Rock band with Hulk Hogan coming out and John Voight doing a monologue in the middle of it, and Gary Sinise and Sylvester Stallone, all of them together. Nitha, what's your quick take here? We got like a minute each, then we'll run out.
I think it's great. I'm a Team Kendrick all the way, and I've always dissed Drake, and now I feel like I've been vindicated, because especially when he was huge, I would always be like, his music is so corny, I hate him. And people used to get on me, and now I'm like, yes, I was right all along.
That's funny. What about you, Wally? Do you have a side? And it's got like, I should not care, but when he did, C minor, the note on that in the song, I'm like, oh, he's like, there's a note C. I'm like, that you got me. That was like the greatest diss I've ever heard in my life with Lamar and his.
I'm on Team Don't Care.
A minor, not A minor, not C minor, A minor. Sorry, the line is A minor. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. See, and I didn't care about that. You got it wrong. Don't care.
But I thought it was such a cool diss. To me, it wasn't even about the.
It was clever. No,
stuff.
Without a doubt.
That I'm like, that was, he's gonna A minor and plays. That's an idea.
Wait a minute, but didn't Kendrick Lamar like win Pulitzer or the Nobel Peace Prize? Something crazy.
Yeah, he won something. I think wait, was it the Nobel? I think it was he won something. I forgot what it was. But yeah, but to that point, like his message was all about pushing back against all the nonsense going on, right? Pushing back against Trump, against the right wing, against the racists, about, Black power, about people of color having a voice, having a say. So that also rubbed people who understood it the wrong way. A lot of the racists were
They don't like it.
too,
All
but
right, before we run out of time,
The performance was pretty clever. I'll give him that. How
it
they
was.
flag and how they broke up the flag and divided the flag. That was pretty cool.
yeah.
Okay, so last thing, give everyone a chance to plug what you have, what's out there. Zoe, let's start with you. Where can people follow your work, your shows, whatever you want to plug?
Really just Instagram, Zoe Levy Comedy, Zoe Comedy. My show is a weekly on the Upper West Side at Jake's Dilemma in the Oak Cellar. It's very cute. I also have a monthly that's Battle of the Sexes because I'm like, let's pit men and women against each other.
Sure.
The women won this month. Okay, that's all.
Yeah.
Congratulations. I think that's great. And
Thank
we
you,
need more
Zach.
We win
divisions.
every
So.
month. How about that?
Nitha, what about you? Where
I
can
wish.
people follow you?
Oh God. So I'm still on Apartheid Clyde site on Twitter. I call it Twitter though. So my handle is Nida Khan, NY, Nida Khanny. It's the same also on Blue Sky, but I haven't really posted there yet. So
I like Blue Sky.
yeah.
Blue Sky are my people. All right. And Wally, what about you, brother?
WALI, Wali Collins, socials, Wali Collins. Please check out Wait What with Wally on YouTube. Instagram. And I'm busy this weekend. I'm working the clubs this weekend. But
He's always busy. He's hilarious. Watch.
I got bills, man. Come on.
Wally's got college. He's got. All right, you guys have been great.